Messi had some interesting choice of words here. Sid, beaten for intensity and desire, as he said Barcelona were for much of the season. He also said the team were weak and inconsistent. These are harsh words from Messi. What's been the reaction?
Yeah, it was extraordinary to see. And in part, the reaction has been, as you just pointed out, what Sport did, which was to use his own words, because there's not really very much we can add in terms of the analysis of what's going on, in terms of an analysis from such an authorised voice. In fact, the most authorised voice there is at Barcelona. It was quite something to see him say it. The way in which he said it, the sense that he looked like a broken man, he looked like he'd absolutely had enough. And so, if you like, the next step in terms of how people received what he said last night was, first of all, to take on what he said in terms of the content of it and to essentially say, well, he's quite right. And then to discuss what this means in terms of the consequences of what he said. Because there's a number of things in there that I think are very significant. There's the suggestion, for example, that the players have to be autocritical, or self-critical rather, let's try and speak English properly, shall we? So the players should be self-critical, but that this was a broader club-wide thing. The suggestion that everything has been bad since January, and of course it won't have passed people by that January is the month in which they sacked Valverde and brought Quique Setien in. The suggestion that if they don't change, they will not win the Champions League. In fact, not only will they not win the Champions League, they will not even get through the game against Napoli. It was an incredibly pessimistic analysis, it was an incredibly direct analysis, and it was one that I think leaves absolutely no doubt as to the understanding, the belief, the idea within the dressing room that this team is in an absolutely dreadful state at the moment.
Sid, one more thing that Messi said. If they want to be competitive in Champions League, they'll need to see big changes. We're taping this Friday night, Spanish time. Could that big change be Quique Setien on his way out before the Champions League in August?
Well, I think the fact that he said, as I just mentioned, that everything has been bad since January, which is when Setien comes in, I think is a very telling remark. I suspect that it wasn't his intention to be quite so direct about Setien personally, but I think there's no doubt that he feels that is part of the problem, although not the key problem, because of course the very fact that he's talking about everyone, the very fact that we saw that Barcelona weren't playing well when they sacked Valverde is a reason they sacked him, even if they were top then and have lost the league now. I must admit, I think if there was a plausible alternative, I would not be enormously surprised if Barcelona took that decision. Bear in mind, there's quite a lot of time now between the end of this season and the beginning of the Champions League campaign, albeit Barcelona have to play Napoli, which means that they restart quicker than others. The question mark there, though, is what is the alternative? Who is the person they can bring in? And bear in mind as well that it's only, I think, 3 days now since Josep Maria Bartomeu, the president of Barcelona, said, I expect Quique Setien to continue next year. We want him to complete his contract. He still has a year left on that contract.
Sid, we had Jules on the show yesterday. I think I've given Jules a couple times to take back all of his criticisms of Ernesto Valverde. Remember, this guy did win La Liga titles for all the catastrophic failures of Champions League. Is anyone around Barcelona prepared to admit that getting rid of Valverde, as aesthetically unpleasing as it may have been, was a mistake?
Look, I think some people are thinking that now, but I think in fairness, it's important to contextualise this. I don't think that many people really lamented the departure of Valverde. I think the disappointment with it, I think the anger with that decision was the timing. I think it was the way in which it was done. I think even if you look at it now, there will be a lot of people who said, well, doing it the way that they did it, doing it with the failure to get a replacement in, because bear in mind that Setien, and you know, this isn't intended to be dismissive of Setien, but Setien, I think, was their third, maybe fourth, maybe even fifth choice. They tried Xavi, they tried Thierry Henry, they tried Ronald Koeman, they'd spoken to Pochettino as well. He was the fourth or fifth choice. And so that tells you that they weren't ready to make that change. They weren't prepared to have everything in place to make sure it ran smoothly. Now, I think most people now would look at this and say, well, this shows that Valverde was very good at keeping a lid on crises, very good at keeping things calm. But that's not necessarily to say that he should have continued. It's just that he should not have gone at the moment in which he went and in the manner in which he went and with the replacement with which he was replaced by.
Let's talk long-term future at Barcelona and put yourself in the shoes of a Barcelona fan. Like, where is the cause for optimism with this team? If they get rid of Setien, it's the third manager they've had in the last season. You look at a team that hasn't played well. The future doesn't look bright. Messi is even talking about potentially leaving. Is there hope for optimism with all the chaos at the management level?
Well, look, I think there is. And the reason I think there is that at the risk of sounding overly simplistic, look at the Barcelona squad. There's a lot of good players in there. Now, we've talked endlessly. We've analysed over and over again the dependency upon Messi, how significant he is, how at times that's problematic for the club, how at times it shows that there are big flaws in the squad. But you're still looking at a squad with a huge amount of talent in there. We're still looking at a squad that before this season won 2 league titles very comfortably in a row. We're still looking at one that, yes, as Messi said during his talk yesterday after the game against Osasuna, he said that Roma hurt, that Liverpool hurt, that they hadn't given the fans anything. But they were a goal at Anfield away, or even just protecting themselves by 1 goal at Anfield away from almost certainly winning a treble last season. You know, they lost the Copa del Rey final, they didn't make it to the Champions League final. I think had they got there, they would have probably won it. Now, obviously, that's partly supposition, but there is... I think there's enough there to believe that there can be some optimism. I think the bigger problem from Barcelona's point of view wouldn't necessarily be looking at the squad, wouldn't necessarily be looking at the manager, be looking at the institutional crisis and thinking, where does this end? How much worse does this have to get before something is done? Bear in mind that we're a year away from presidential elections, and I think that, possibly more than anything else, is the thing that will most worry Barcelona fans.
Sid, you and I were on the show the day that the news broke that Messi was stalling his contract talks with Barcelona. At the time, you didn't sound convinced that this was necessarily the first step on his way out. But given what's happened in the last 24 hours, are you moving at all on that?
No, not really, because I think when you listen to him yesterday, he was asked directly about this. He said, look, now's not the time to talk about this. It did sound, I must admit, like someone who was thinking, well, you know, I don't even want to talk about this now because, I'll lose control of what I'm saying. You know, I will say something I shouldn't. I will make things worse. But I still think that his position on his future is about a determination that this team must compete, about his discomfort with the board as it currently stands, and in any case, the suggestion was already that this was something for the end of next season. By the end of next season, as we've just talked about, some of the solutions should be in place, or at least some of the beginning of a change in board of directors, a change in president, a change in structure, a change at institutional level, which is what Messi needs most of all. By which time, of course, Messi will also be 34. So who knows if at that point, Messi might anyway be thinking about retirement, regardless of everything that's going on around Barcelona, which, of course, as he made very, very clear last night, he is absolutely furious about.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week, subscribe to ESPN+.